Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the World Radio Network's Own Your Own Radio Network webinar. We're going to give everybody about another 30 seconds to join us, and then we'll get started. So just bear with us. If you are excited to be here, I just wanted to let you guys know we are just as excited to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, we'll give it about another 15 seconds or so, and then we'll get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me first go over the agenda for this webinar. This webinar is roughly 20-25 minutes tops, so we'll get you in and out, and we'll even leave some time at the end for some questions. So we'll have a chat box that will open up at the bottom there that you'll be able to ask some questions. If we don't get all your questions answered, don't worry about it. I'll leave my phone number at the end, and you'll be able to get back out in touch with me, and we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we are going to talk about who we are, a little bit about me, what we do, who we help, how we can really help you, and the pricing, and what are the next steps. So we'll get right into this, and let's not waste any time. So World Radio Networks is the #1 most downloaded online radio network that houses over 70 shows between us and our sister network. We formed this network with the intent of providing high-quality content to business owners and industry-specific listeners all over the world. What we've come to learn is that radio online is stronger than ever before. More people are listening to radio, on live shows, podcasts, on their mobile devices, and we'll get into why online radio, internet radio, is actually starting to get a lot of traction and a lot of respect from the terrestrial marketplace. My name is Jason Gary, and I am the founder of and CEO of World Radio Networks. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force, a serial entrepreneur, and I also sit on the board of Soldiers Angels, which is a nonprofit charitable organization with over 50,000 volunteers that caters to military members and their families. I've been in radio for roughly 6 years now. My first stint was on Blog Talk Radio, where I was a host of a show that just talked to business owners, and then I eventually moved on to Toledo Biz Talk, which is a Clear Channel station radio show that I hosted, and then we moved on to a show called Catalyst Business Radio, which was a nationally broadcast syndicated radio show, which we were airing in 32 markets at the time. From there, today I actually host a nationally broadcast syndicated radio show called Big Pitch Radio, which is a great show that I host with my great friend Kevin Harrington. He is one of the original Sharks on Shark Tank. Now, this show is broadcasted currently in 36 markets and growing, and we can be heard by roughly 10 million people and any given week on Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Big Pitch Radio. That was my final shameless plug for the day. Now, our primary company is, just to kind of give you an idea of our corporate structure, is Diamond Business Advisors, which houses 5 groups: Diamond Media Group, our Diamond Energy Group, our expense reduction firm, our franchise venture capital group, and then our small business advisory firm, which has funded or helped advise over 40,000 businesses over the last 20 years or so, give or take. For the purposes of the webinar, we'll be focusing on the World Radio Networks, which is a division of the Diamond Media Group. So World Radio Networks, as mentioned before, is an online radio network. Now, most people say that this does not really have the same credibility as a terrestrial radio show like our Big Pitch radio show. And they would actually be correct. But one thing that the terrestrial radio shows don't have is the ability to truly drill down to the exact number of listeners, whereas our network, due to its incredible reporting capabilities, can determine exactly how many podcast downloads any one guest any one show gets, which is tremendously valuable when trying to recruit hosts, guests, sponsors, or advertisers. We have a tremendous marketing team, and on staff, with their efforts, our network received almost 10 million podcast downloads in the month of April alone, and we are tracking this month to be somewhere between 25 and 30 podcast downloads this month. That gets really even more interesting here is we use social media to drive traffic to these podcasts, and so we get really highly targeted audience and listeners that are seeking the actual content that the hosts and those individual shows are producing. So with this ability to target all of our shows, and there are many varieties, and getting the exact target types of listeners that we seek, advertisers are finding that when they advertise on a show that's podcasted, that they in fact get more leads and more highly targeted leads. So having done radio for over 6 years, I can assure you that what we've learned a lot about is, and are the ways not to do radio shows and ways to get the full advantage of doing a radio show and running a network. And there are definitely a lot of needs out there, including great content, and people and many businesses are in need of great advice, tips, and strategies that can help them. But let's not forget that in order to do this with any level of sustainability, we must treat radio shows and radio networks as businesses, as business entities in which we try to create several profit centers within them. And this is what we've been able to master very, very effectively and continue to even improve upon what we're doing every single day. So here are some ways that you can monetize radio shows, radio networks for that matter. We can sell shows. We can actually sell advertising and sponsorships on the networks or the shows or both, within the shows and on the web pages. We can give shows away to hosts who may be prospective partners or clients very strategically. We'll talk about that. You can sell podcasts and blogs. The Asian market, the European market are really, really hot to trot on getting different podcasts and content, and we'll pay for those. We can engage in business with guests that we have on the shows or that our hosts have on the shows. What I want to talk about right now is a couple of case studies or case study and a deal that we have in the works right now. We have Elmer Davis Jr. He's a real estate investor, graduate, speaker at the United Nations, purchased business radio networks. We identified who his target clients were. They happen to be high net worth individuals seeking to expand their portfolio. The first show we put together on the network was CEO Roundtable Show, where we interview CEOs from large organizations who are seeking greater exposure for their companies. Because of the relationship we built with the CEOs on that show, Elmer has been able to cultivate enough relationships to do business where he's achieved his return on investment within 3 months. Now, in the example deal, let's say that you own a wealth advisory firm and you get most of your business from CPAs. Now, building partnerships with CPAs can be time-consuming, and most CPA firms get requests to form partnerships daily. Now, without having anything unique to offer, you will blend in with all the other folks trying to gain access to the clients of the CPA firms. By owning a radio network, what you could in fact do is offer a complimentary radio show in exchange for them referring you clients with whom you could offer your services. Now, we are in discussions right now with a potential buyer of one of our networks who has a lifetime value of client that ranges from anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000. Now, if he were to build out the full 50 shows, which he is allotted in this particular arrangement, and each of his referral partners pass along 10 referrals a year at a conservative lifetime value of $100,000, this would translate into $50 million in current and future revenues for each year the network was running and that particular show was running. That's just one show. Now, this model and strategy can be applied to any of our networks with slight variations and adjustments. So briefly, I want to show you some of the different types of radio platforms that exist. Blog Talk Radio is where I cut my teeth, and it served its purpose for me. But the sound quality was horrible. Sorry, Blog Talk, but it was not great at all. And if you wanted to try to have guests on, it got a little hairy, and also it was not easy to manage the shows and set all that up, and then a lot of their own advertising on your websites and all these different things. Terrestrial radio is great. I mean, I enjoy it. I've been doing it for years, but it is very, very expensive to do on scale. It would cost 50 times, 100 times more money to run the same business model that we're here to discuss today out. And terrestrial radio is very difficult to get quantifiable numbers in terms of listeners, like I mentioned before, even with Arbitron and the Nielsen ratings that they use today. Internet radio platform is what we use here at World Radio Networks, the online platform. That said, all internet radio platforms aren't the same. They don't all actually use board operators, similar to the terrestrial radio shows like we do, and are very, very overly priced compared to what we offer here. And you would burn through the investment that we are seeking within 3 to 4 months based off of what we're offering. But with us, it's a one-time fee, and you own your own network for life, and we'll always have staff to run the network. They also only really sell individual shows, so we have the infrastructure and staff and the capital to sell entire networks. Additionally, none of these other internet radio platforms have the marketing teams that we have that will drive podcast downloads. Podcasting software is nice, but you can't take live callers without really some serious and significant equipment and technical capabilities. There are no board operators, and they don't have the marketing component attached like we do. Plus, there's often not the branded website, and many, many other features that we offer don't exist with podcasting software. Now, we help countries, associations, clubs, entrepreneurs, writers, speakers, doctors, businesses, all kinds of people. You name it, we help them. They host shows, guests on the shows, businesses that listen to our shows. We try to help everybody and anybody at all times. Here are some of the networks and shows that we have right now. CEO Roundtable Show, Business Radio Networks, the Big Pitch Radio Show. Some of the industry shows that are up for sale right now are, and country shows are American Radio Networks, China Radio Networks, Taiwan Radio Networks, Australia Radio Networks.com, franchise radio networks, technology radio networks. We have several others that are available and for sale. We're really excited about that. Now, everybody wants to know how long it's going to take to get my return on investment. Show me the ROI. Now, a lot of this depends on several factors like who your potential clients are, how many you can invite to the show, to host their own show, how many clients they can theoretically refer, and what the lifetime value of those clients are. But additionally, your host can sell advertising and sponsorship packages and share the revenue. And depending on how you structure this, it's very possible to earn $250,000 per show per year just on the advertising and sponsorships alone. We'll talk about that in a couple. There are 8 minutes of commercial advertising inventory available. It can be sold at different price points, and there's variables involved. But again, $250,000 per show, up to $500,000 per show is very, very realistic. What we provide is really turnkey consulting, and on top of that, all the technology and the build out and all these other things that come with owning your own radio show and network. We will provide comprehensive consulting and resources to position your network for success. As part of the purchase of the network, and in addition to handling the operation, broadcasting, podcasting, and marketing show, we will assist in the strategic development, network development, host recruitment, and training, and how to sell advertisements and sponsorships. When we say turnkey, we mean turnkey. Again, types of networks: manufacturing radio networks, and retail radio networks, and Australia radio networks. So let's talk about pricing and what one would get with buying a network. The pricing can be broken down either by industry radio shows, networks, and country radio shows or networks. I say networks and shows because they're really synonymous inside of the network platform. The industry networks are $300,000 if financed, one-time fee, or $250,000 up front. Country shows are $3 million if financed and $2.5 million up front if not financed. What you get and the value is received is on a industry network. You'll get 50 industry shows per week that you can record. That can be 50 one time, 50 different shows, or it could be one show, or 10 shows 5 times a week. There's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice that, but and then on a country, it's basically 10x what you get offered there. So we'll do 500 shows a week, and we're in discussions with a Chinese investor right now that's looking to buy a China radio network right now as we speak. He gets show development, website page development, production, podcasting, advertising and marketing, board operation, commercial production, record the podcast. We can record the podcast in different languages that you can be then distributed out there worldwide. Turnkey consulting like we were just talking about. So let's go ahead and get to some questions, and then we'll wrap this up and get you back to your busy days. Again, we should be able to cover most of them, but if we can't, by all means, we'll be leaving a phone number. I'll give you my cell phone number. You feel free to call me anytime. This is very important for us to find great network buyers and really help you succeed. So let's jump right into some of the first questions. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat box right there below, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we possibly can. All right, so the first question is, how many networks are for sale? That's a great question. We have roughly about 50 networks for sale right now, and that number is growing every day. But we will hit a threshold and cap it because 50 networks is a lot of shows, and so we'll talk about that later. How long does it take to launch a network? Great question. So, for the time that we sign the agreements and receive payment, we aim to have a network launched within the first 30 days, at least the first shows launched in the first 30 days. Now, that's ambitious, and it sounds ambitious, and I know it's ambitious, but we really strive for that. But we really do not want to exceed 45 days to get everything rolling. So it's a machine. We work quickly, we work briskly. We have big teams to help you get launched and get going. All right, are these shows live? Yes, we actually broadcast these shows live, and so they'll come on at a certain time. People can listen to them live, right online. That's so we also record them and put them into podcasts. So we have a live board operator that will actually connect with your hosts and guests and manage the shows, take you and your hosts in and out of commercials, play intros and outros and bumpers and all these different things that go with live radio. And we do all of that. It mimics that of a terrestrial radio show. Do you own the content for the shows? That's a great question. The answer is yes. You own all the content for the show, but we ask that we also can distribute that content as well. So we share in the content, but you own all the content. And that is going to be stated in the agreement. How many shows are we allowed to put on any one network? Great question. So for industry shows, we will provide all the resources for up to 50 shows per week, or 50 hours worth of programming each and every week. So for country shows, we'll provide all of the resources for up to 500 shows per week, or 500 hours of programming each and every week. So if you want more, we can do that, but it'll be provide custom pricing beyond that as well. Next question is, where do we find hosts? Well, there are several ways to find hosts. One of the most effective ways to find hosts is through your existing network. But there are plenty of marketing channels. We'll help you develop a strategy as part of our consulting package that is included in the acquisition. All right, let's get the next question here. You mentioned financing. How does that work? Well, we have financing only on industry shows that we have, not necessarily, industry networks, not necessarily country networks. So we have a 0% financing arm that is easy to qualify, but you have to have about $2.5 million in revenue and consistent revenue. And, so if that's not the case, then you'll have to pay for the network up front. And we encourage just funding the network up front and beginning down that path. So how long should we expect before we start making money? Well, again, that all depends on the ability to tap your existing network and how you structure your radio network. For instance, I've sold advertising sponsorship spots before my prior shows have launched. So I've always had my show's paid for, or a good share of my show's paid for before I even launch my first show. So it depends on your network, how responsive they are to opportunities you're working on, and things like that. But we could show you a lot of ways to do that, and we talked about other ways to monetize that could have you making money right away. All right, so who owns the domain name and again the content? Okay, great question. So the domain name, we would actually transfer the domain name ownership over to you once payment has been made and received in full. In other words, if you finance a network versus paying for it all up front, you would get the website transferred upon the last payment of the contract that's been received. So I hope that answers your question. So how much money can you actually make by owning a network? Great question. And obviously, there's a broad spectrum of answers here, but I'll try to drill down a little bit deeper. So this largely really depends on what you sell, your average price point, the size of your network, your ability to influence them, and so on. That said, properly positioned, you can really make significant returns on your investments. So, again, going back to the Elmer Davis buying the Business Radio network, in his example, is that his $250,000 investment, which he received his ROI within a couple of months, was done with only one show on his network. Only one show, and he has 49 more shows we could build out for him. So if that's any indication of what's possible, then hopefully that answers your question. What are the risks? Well, this is a great question. The infrastructure is in place for you to be very, very successful with this. The social proof exists in that we've really are using our known networks and to accomplish this for ourselves already. So that said, the risk is really relies more in your abilities to influence others and seeing the value of hosting their own radio show, and also that you really manage your expectations. This will be work. This is not like completely hands off. There's going to be some effort. It's going to have to go in it. So make no mistake about that. We want to make sure that we're managing your expectations as well. All the turkey that we provide makes no difference in the world if you don't approach this endeavor with equal or greater intensity and commitment to make it work. So if you're used to starting projects or endeavors but not really committed to applying all your resources to it and being patient with it, then probably not the best venture for you. But if you are a go-getter and you continue to do what you have been doing to be able to afford a radio network and apply that same level of acumen and intensity, then I think we're going to be just fine combining our collective resources. What kind of time should I commit to in terms of this whole process and what kind of patience and time? So if you dive headfirst into this, you should start making a return very, very quickly. That said, you will be committing to a long-term process here. So really think about it like the first block is about 6 months before you look back to determine how successful you've been so far. We have a consulting team that's going to work with you during the process to help you with your ideas or suggestions that we feel will better serve your network, you, and your ways to monetizing this quickly. This is truly not a set and forget endeavor, and you're going to need to be aware of that first and foremost. Now, I want to say that I think we got a lot of questions covered, a lot of information disseminated to you guys that should give you a real sense of what this is all about. I want to honor everybody's time on the call here on the webinar, and just let everybody know that we want to thank you so much. So if you did not get your questions answered, don't worry about that. Feel free to give me a call, and let's book a time to chat and talk about this. Be happy to spend some time with you and answer all your questions, concerns, anything. We really want to build great partnerships with our network buyers, and we are excited, and we would love to have you join us. So I want to give you my cell phone. Again, my name is Jason Gary, and my cell phone is 419-367-4507. That's 419-367-4507. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Get back to your work days and crush it, accomplish much, and keep building those empires out there. And I look forward to seeing you. Again, my number is 419-367-4507. All right, Jeff. We'll see you then.